Hey guys, it's G here. I thought we'd take a quick bike ride through the center of Milan while we talk about what affects relationships more, race or culture. Guys, subscribe to my channel and let's have a little chat while we ride our bike.
The Italian guy I was talking to and I'm so happy that you're not Italian. Italian girls like to fight way too much. Dobra Kuba.
Racial identity has come to define so much of who we are. We forget that we are connected by other things other than the color of our skin. And this is not meant to discount the history of these social constructs and how they've shaped our worldview at all. But in reality, a Black American person is likely to have far more in common culturally with a white American than they would a Kenyan who has never experienced American life. But if a Black American were to admit and say they might have struggles with someone culturally just because they're from another continent, but maybe fall under the same race, people will look at them sideways. They will likely be accused of hating themselves instead of, people recognizing the fact that culture has shaped us. And despite the fact that most white people in the United States suffer from cognitive dissonance, if they didn't, they would see how easily Black Americans have created the culture there, and Black culture is American culture. Most white Italians do not see people of color as Italian, even if they were born here, raised here, went to school here, worked here, and knew very little of their home country. They would not see them as being Italian just because of the color of their skin. But in reality, culturally, they'd be much more relatable to another Italian versus the place where their parents may have been born. This cognitive dissonance is something that I have found perpetuates through whiteness, whether it be in the United States or here in Europe. When I lived in France, people often said they were French first, and then anything else came after. And I thought this was kind of a standard idea in Europe. But as I've moved around, I found out it definitely is not. And having been in both interracial as well as intercultural relationships, I find that culture creates the most challenges for mixing things up. What we find comfort in, the things that we find relatable, how we communicate, it's so much of our culture that we forget about. And sometimes when we're trying to have intercultural relationships, it becomes one of the biggest challenges. Regardless of if you speak the same language, if you've figured certain aspects out, there's still something culturally that you might miss. My comforts are not even close to my partners. We have very different ideas of what we want to eat and how we want to eat it. I might make some sort of Italian dish. However, it's not going to be like how his mom made it. And of course, there's times where I want the things that are familiar to me, the things that my grandmother made that make me feel comfort and like home. In fact, a lot of times these are things that can make your partners seem completely unrelatable. They don't get your sense of humor or why you joke the way you do, or the things that you see that they don't see in any given situation. I just recently found out my partner didn't know who Outkast or Andre 3000 was, and I was shooketh. And really, so many miscommunications or misunderstandings can be based on our cultural perspectives of how we see things in any given moment. And it proves to be some of the greatest challenges to work through, to be able to understand someone else's perspective and want to see things from an aspect that you have never seen. And sometimes seeing your culture in a light that your partner experiences that you may never experience. And if you're living abroad, living in your partner's home country, it can leave you wondering, how do you assimilate while still holding on to aspects of who you are and being yourself as much as possible. Passing your culture down to your children while you're living inside of another culture that you're also assimilating with can leave lots of challenges, difficulties, not for you, but your relationship and even your relationships with your children. And this would be no different if I were living on the continent of Africa in a country that was new to me, in a culture that was not my own. So the race part would be covered. We might be the same race. However, we would be of different cultures and have the same challenges as I have with my Italian partner. Of course, these challenges are not impossible to overcome. However, a lot of people prefer to have the comfort of things that they know, and that's why some multicultural, intercultural relationships can be a challenge. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this little bike ride with me around the center of Milan, and subscribe to my channel. Guys, I look forward to talking to you in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspectives on culture versus race, and ciao ciao for now.